And at the time when we met, I had made it clear that I really wanted to be a parent. And he said, yeah, of course, we'll be parents. He had had a foster kid at some point. But when he and I met, neither one of us had been looking for a relationship. So we came back here, and I started my residency in psychiatry, and he went to work as a social worker at the time in a number of different places, and we just sort of did all this aid stuff on the side. And then in 84, we decided we would start the adoption process or surrogacy. And we went back and forth. We met with some friends. There was a lesbian couple that wanted to co-parent with us, and we would have 2 children. Each of us would donate to one of the women. And we spent weeks and weeks having dinners together and talking about raising kids and how we would do this, all the politics of, raising, what if they're boys, what if they're girls, and what are the gender politics. And Carrie and I came home one night and said, this is nuts. 4 of us will drive each other crazy trying to raise a child. We can't do that to a kid. And we decided we also wanted to be full-time custodial parents. And so we initiated the process of adopting. And at that time, single gay men were adopting as single parents, but rarely. Women were more able to adopt either as single women. There had been no really openly lesbian or gay adoptions in the Boston area. So we went to the blue chip agency, Boston Children's Service, and said, we want to adopt, will you support us? And the woman who was the clinical director there was interested and said, well, we'll see, let's do a home study. And there was a 2-year-old that they wanted to consider placing with us, an interracial child, which is what we were looking to do. And it turned out that at that time there was a political upheaval because these 3 young black children had been placed with a gay white couple in foster care in Roxbury, and the community went nuts and pulled these kids after 2.5 years of living with these men, pulled the kids out of their homes. And those kids went back into the orphanage, and I don't know what ultimately happened to them. It was tragic. And so we basically lost this 2-year-old to that politics. And it was kind of like having a miscarriage. We waited another year, and then coincidentally, there was a woman in the social work group that Carrie was part of who told us that there was an infant from Georgia, biracial infant, who was supposed to be placed in Boston, but the family had had some kind of medical emergency and they couldn't take the kid. We should put our names in. So we went to Jewish Family Service, which was a traditional Jewish family service, very socially minded, very progressive. And the woman who was the new executive director said that she was not willing to go to the board and take the risk of being the first test case for gay adoption. But the woman who was the chief social worker there pulled us aside and said, look, I love you guys and this baby needs a home. You call this woman down in Georgia at the agency that has custody of the kid. And we did, and they invited us to come down. And this is where you begin to believe that the universe can either conspire with you or against you. The woman who started the agency where Scott was being fostered had tried to have a child with her husband, and she couldn't get pregnant, so she wanted to adopt, and her husband refused to adopt. So she divorced him, and then as a social worker, she started her own adoption agency and started to place children from India and Pakistan and China. But Scott, who had been born locally to a white woman and a Mexican man, Scott's mother had died shortly after birth, so he was in a foster home with a wonderful older woman who took incredible care of him. And we went down when he was just 3 months old and spent the weekend down there. We interviewed with the agency. They, to their credit, said, hey, who are we to decide who should be parents? And it was interesting because it was pretty conservative, and they were wonderful. And so by the time we got all the paperwork and stuff done, we went down to pick them up at 5.5 months old. Meanwhile, our lives were changing like instantly, and that's how we started our family. And it's funny because we went to my parents when Carrie and I were thinking about adoption, and I knew historically that Jewish families, if they adopted, usually adopted other Jewish babies or within family in many ways, just like other ethnic groups. So we went to my parents and said, how do you two feel about us adopting a biracial kid who's Mexican American? And they said, well, why would we be opposed to you adopting? I mean, do you think your DNA is so great? Which says a lot about my parents. Of course, my great aunt who heard about it wanted to know if we were going to raise him Jewish. I said, well, we'll raise him the way we are Jewish.